Anybody. I think growing up in Banjul is quite instructive in this particular regard. If you display anything that shows some little weakness, exploit it, because bullyism, I mean, you cannot be masculine if you cannot display those traits or those attributes. Anybody. I think growing up in Banjul is quite instructive in this particular regard. If you display anything that shows some little weakness, exploit it, because bullyism in our society, especially amongst boys who demonstrate weaknesses, who demonstrate some form of, well, I may call it effeminate traits or feminine traits, simply because we have a fixed notion as to how men or boys should behave. You may be allowed to set a discrete tier if an auntie or a dear grandparent dies, but that's about as far as it goes. Anything beyond that, you are castigated, you are decried, you are labeled, you are pointed at as somebody not fit for the label man. So it's not just a social expectation that you should behave in a particular way. It's in fact a social norm. And that is, it becomes a value in our society. And as a result, statistics have shown that women are 5 times more likely to cry over an issue than a man. And most instances, it is the woman who would display emotions instead of the man. But this is all based on notions that are really false. Each society has certain false issues which it peddles in order to keep the society to behave in a particular way. In Gambian society, we have a few interesting ones. I'll remind you of some. Oh, young children don't drink coconut water, otherwise you become stupid. We all had that growing up. But is that really true? Young people can obviously drink coconut water. The fact of the matter is there wasn't enough coconut water to go around, so the adults would want it for themselves. Young children should not eat the head of a fish because you become stupid. That too was just a way of them hoodwinking us in order to have, yeah. And there is another one. In Banjul, while I was growing up, they used to tell us, don't walk at night, don't walk the streets. There is what is called kick there, nyaka kick there. Exactly. So there was this so-called football that would be bouncing around from street to street. So if you come across that football, if you kick it, you die. If you don't kick it, you die. Yeah. We were also made to believe that there was this mythical horse, one-legged mythical horse, Fasibe Natanka. And it used to, patrol the streets of Banjul for those kids who would not go to bed early. So all these things were lies that were just meant to keep us in line, lies that were meant to really make us afraid, or lies that were meant to keep us to behave in a particular way. And there are many other societies which have similar lies. And I argue that this whole notion that men don't cry is just one of those lies. Because our wives would know that we come from work, go inside and cry to our heart's content. True or false? In fact, history, those who are students of history here, correct me if I'm wrong, would tell us that, in fact, men cried a lot during the Middle Ages. It was normal and expected for men to cry. Knights would cry. You miss your girlfriend, you cry to your heart's content. You miss your wife, you cry to your heart's content. It was expected and normal behavior. But why did some societies change? But more particularly in Gambia, why are we different? I think we are different because we have this warrior culture and this warrior society wherein every little community is expected to bring up its own warriors for its own self-defense or for its own adventures to conquer other communities. You cannot have wimps or sissies around, so you have to make everybody look mature and strong and masculine, display no vulnerability, show no emotion. But the reality is, these people are still human beings. And for a human being, we are simply not designed to swallow our emotions and just bottle them up. Because the more you do that, what you get is pent-up anger. Someday it will just explode, boom, and then there would be problems. Suppressing tears can be hazardous to our well-being. In fact, crying or weeping is therapeutic. Studies have shown that in countries where people cry the most, they tend to be more democratic, and the populations are more extroverted. Well, this is something I have discovered from research. I hope it is true. And in that case, I hope Gambian people would cry more. When we hide our tears or we pent up our emotions, when we subscribe to taboos against male expressiveness, it means that men would therefore be less likely to get help when they need it. Because, well, you would not come out and show that you need help.
The term toxic masculinity has become a catch-all phrase to describe male feelings of entitlement, anger, vulnerability, the urge to dominate, intimidate through either overt or covert means. So that's, and in general, toxic masculinity refers to harmful behavior and attitudes commonly associated with men, which, such as the need to repress, I'm a bit nervous, sorry about that. Such as the need to repress emotions during stressful situations and to act in an aggressively dominant way. Initially, this movement started in the 1980s and the 1990s to refer to what they saw as a narrow, socially constructed version of manhood that compelled men to deny their feelings and compete with each other rather than to bond. Also came to use in social psychology to analyze how extreme version of masculinity not only hurts others, especially women and children, but also the men themselves. So this behavior of showing of aggression doesn't only hurt the men, it affects especially women who are at a disadvantage. That affects women tend to affect children as well. If we look at how we raise our boys, that is very, very important because, like Mr. Fall said, we as women, I think the brunt of this toxic masculinity lies in us because we are the ones who raise these boys. And then we tell them to be men. They don't have to show any feminine behavior. They don't have to cry. They have to be strong. And then these same men or boys that we women raise grow up to be men, and we expect them to show emotions to their wives and girlfriends. How do we do that? Because as a feminist, sometimes I struggle with that, because I always say that I'm an African feminist, and sometimes my son challenges me because he says, 1 minute you tell me that you are a feminist, men are supposed to do that, and then the next minute you tell me that, oh, you can't do this. And it conflicts with my beliefs and my upbringing as an African woman, as a feminist living in Norway. So I always tell them that I practice African feminism. That is when it suits me, but when I'm among African men, that's another issue altogether. The notion that men must act in a dominant and aggressive manner in order to command respect is a concept that may stem from perpetuation of patriarchy, but this doesn't solely affect the boys and men that exhibit this behavior, but those around them as well. We are not aware of how we are acting affecting people we love. The question men should ask is that, are the things I'm doing in line with the man I aspire to be? Because sometimes you behave in a certain way, and then you sometimes stop to ask yourself, especially when you look at your sons or your daughters, then you ask the question, is that for the man you aspire to be, and is that the man you want your daughters or your sisters to marry? So all these behaviors is interconnected, because women and men, whether we like it or not, we coexist in this society, in this planet, on this planet, and we have to treat each other with respect. Growing up as an African woman, there are subtle unspoken aspects of that I was able to notice. A texture of romantic relationship. One of these aspects is the usual presence of toxic masculinity, a set of behavior that are irrational and destructive, stemming from beliefs that dictate the template of real men. It's the same like when in Africa, men are not supposed to show emotions. You are supposed to be strong. You are supposed to take care of the family, and when you show emotion, then you are weak. And because we set the template as to how men are supposed to behave. But is that behavior how real men are supposed to behave? I don't think so. Masculine can be it's a good thing. But when it's toxic, then it becomes a problem. And that's what we are talking about. We are not talking about men being masculine. You want a strong man that can defend you, because we know that biologically, men are stronger. So if you show that masculine side, defending your children or your wife, we are not against that. It is when you start demeaning us and thinking that we are not capable of making decisions on our own, this is when it becomes a problem. I hate these gadgets. I prefer my papers and stuff. Sorry, I'm going to be apologizing like Lamine, because I have this, okay. Yeah, you are good at these things. I'm struggling with my Yeah.
I just want it to stay so that, because it keeps going away. So I don't know whether I have to. Okay.
Go away because of this on the screen.
Yeah, okay. So we can put it, okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I tried, but I can't open it from my email. Huh? Oh yeah, but I don't have a memory stick, do I? You have it. Okay. My email. Send it to you. Okay.
Just a minute. I'm just going to send it to Inde and then I can have it because my phone keeps acting up.
Hey. Wait. Okay, so how do I?
Let me close this.
Okay.
You just do it here.
Okay, yeah, okay. Right. So, and then up. Yeah, okay.
Where are you?
There.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here you just,
Yeah.
the cursor is there. Just go.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. What are the main reasons behind toxic masculinity? This can be attributed to peer pressure and insecurity. It is no secret that what we human beings tend to overdo are the things that we feel we are lacking in. And in most cases, men who resort to this may simply feel they need to prove themselves. This thought process is like it can lead a man to destroy his relationship while battling imaginary monsters in his head. The next is, how can toxic masculinity ruin our sexual relationship? This whole thing has thrown me off a bit, but sorry. Falling in the trap of this mindset can lead to irreparable damages to your loved ones. And though it is programmed in our culture, it is very important to make decisions based on rational, solid, healthy and emotional reasons. Here are some of the ways to identify toxic masculinity. Proving something with no particular reason. When an argument makes no sense and has no beneficial purposes, it can be a sign for merely trying to exercise pseudo dominance or bullshit dominance, as I will call it, fueled by the notion that a man knows best and a man should not be opposed. That is why it is very important to differentiate between arguments that will would benefit the relationship and quarrels that are based on blind ego. Sometimes we quarrel with our partners not because your wife has done anything wrong, but just because you want to pick on her and be proved right. So you find excuses to create a quarrel. Although this quarrel may not be beneficial to you, but just trying to flex your muscles as a man, you pick quarrels. But my argument is that pick quarrels that are beneficial, not quarrel, but discussions, because quarrels seem to be negative, but just pick arguments that are beneficial to the relationship. Stubbornly refusing improvement. Proper communication is the bread and butter of any healthy relationship. Refusing to hear an opinion or an idea stubbornly because you are a man and you have always been entitled to your word. You have always been entitled to your word being the law. Is not healthy for communication. Some even use it as a trap card to end the hustle. It is important to keep one's ego in check and understand that it is okay to heed to advice from people who love you. Subconsciously demeaning your loved one. The worst of them all, you will catch yourself jealous of your loved one's success, hell-bent on making her acknowledge you as a better half. A success may lead to you feel your masculinity is threatened. I know a lot of men who will tell you that they are feminists, they support their wives, and yet the moment their wives start getting better positions at job than them, then when they come home, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem not by they saying it, but sometimes the wife has to go out to a meeting and you have children. If your husband does not support you, definitely you cannot go out and attend that meeting. So it's toxic masculinity, because if your wife is doing okay, definitely the house is good. A happy wife is a happy home. So if you don't support your wife and you are always undermining her, definitely the consequences later will take you to the bedroom where there will be problems. But I'll get back to that. Some men go to the extent of criticizing your clothes. You are fat. You shouldn't be associating with this person. You shouldn't be associating with this person. And I find that very interesting, because if everything being equal, the man that is criticizing you about your looks, how big you have become, I don't think that sometimes the men take a look at themselves, because you get married, we grow together. So whilst you are being fat, he is also being fat. So why should you maintain your structure or your beauty to please a man? The fear is that if you don't do that, somebody else will do. But until we have that discussion where we say that if my husband tells me, oh, you are fat, I'm like, I don't also like your pot belly. If he says, oh, don't talk to this friend, you should also be able to tell your husband that I don't also necessarily like this your friend. So the bottom line is communication. But if we don't communicate, and it's not about the man, but right now, today, we are talking about toxic masculinity. And I'm very happy that the men have been very powerful in their definition, in their explanation, and they all agree that it is a job that we all have to get involved in. And being a feminist, like Lamine Mose said, it's not against men. It's just getting our right to be part of equal partners in this journey, whether it's marriage or it's in this society or it's child upbringing, whatever it is, we just want equal furthering. So. Yeah. Shunning affection. One of the worst things of human being, one of the worst things a human being can face is the denial of their affection. Some men can be aggressive in response to affection because the concept that a man can show affection or a middle side. Yeah. So some men, like he said, they cry, they come to us and cry in, in secret. But then to go out and show emotion and just say, look, I'm not feeling myself, doesn't make you a man. And I disagree with that. Anytime I see a man cry, I'm like, wow, this must be deep. So for every man that is afraid to cry, those are the sissies. Yeah, those are the sissies, because the ones who cry, trust me, for a man to cry, it takes a lot. So for you to do that, you are the man, you are not the sissy. So anytime you cry and anybody tells you you are a sissy, tell them that it takes a man to cry. Toxic masculinity dramatically limits the way people of all gender can safely express themselves sexually. The fear of being judged, rejected, assaulted, or a victim of intimate partner violence as a result of certainly does not help to set the mood for safe sex. Mutually satisfying sexual experience. Here are some of the ways toxic masculinity hits everyone's sexual life. It makes men's pleasure, it makes women think that men's pleasure is their job. And this notion that women want love and women want affection is a myth. Because there are women who love sex as much as men and they want to be satisfied. But just because you don't want to bruise your partner's ego, we tend to fake orgasms, because if you don't, then the man will think that, oh, he's not performing. And the fact that we cannot even discuss that, look, you are doing this wrong, because men think that, okay, they know everything about sex. But that is not necessarily true. And one of the things that men don't understand is that women know their body and they know what they want. So communication is very, very important. Whether it's casual sex or relationship sex or hookup sex, like young people would say it, you still want to be satisfied, because there's nothing as frustrating as somebody just banging on you and then they release themselves and then you don't have your orgasm to release your endorphins. It causes a lot of tension. So. In fact, there was a research by the sex journal of sex journal that found that the reason why women fake orgasms is because they don't want to bruise their partner's egos. And my challenge to these women in this hall is that stop faking orgasms. We've all done it before. Sometimes I just try, okay, whatever, but it's true. Women enjoy sex equally as much as men do. And sex is not only about producing children. Children are a byproduct of that enjoyment. I mean, sometimes we need to procreate, but then If God wanted it to be just procreation, there will be no orgasm for the man or the woman. Simple. So once there is that factor, we should take into consideration and communicate with each other. It's very important. This also encourages misogyny. Masculinity is defined in opposition to femininity. Men are taught that their manhood comes from the ability to dominate women and that it is wrong for them to act like women. This often means that sex where women are degraded is glorified. That is not fulfilling for either, this is not fulfilling for either party. It deprives men of the chance to truly connect with their partner and to deprive women from being treated like equals. What they're trying to say is that if you sleep with your wife or your husband and then the next minute they turn and they snore, especially when you haven't had your orgasm, how does that make you feel? You feel empty. And then the following morning you carry that resentment because he has told you. I mean, sometimes if you don't even get that you are looking for, just holding you makes things sometimes better. Because no, but it's true. Although I talk about orgasms and whatever, still sometimes you just need to be held. So if they are tired, aren't we all tired? Sometimes we're all tired. So what is the solution? The solution is to stop romanticizing, sexualizing pairs of opposites in which men act masculine and women act feminine, and allow everybody the freedom to act however they are, regardless of how much it conforms to gender roles. Yeah. Yeah, because this is very important, because sometimes we are afraid to explore because the woman is sitting down waiting for the man to initiate, and then there is the man's role to do this, to do that. So the roles are defined, and it ends up creating problems in your relationship. And because the women are afraid to be judged, oh, you are so spoiled. Where did you learn this from? It makes us very, very, you don't want to express yourself because you don't want your husband questioning where you learned all those tricks from. But the fact is that women talk with each other, and women read. When women meet, they talk to each other. And a friend might tell you, oh, this I did and my husband liked. And then you come home and you want to try that with your husband. And then he goes, where did you learn that from? So you see where the problem, it creates problems. So it makes you wait for him to initiate. But if everybody is free to express themselves however they want, would that be a man? A woman can be aggressive sexually. It doesn't make you masculine. A man can be, feminine in their listening. It doesn't make you gay. It doesn't. Sometimes some people like it rough, some people like it. So roles can be alternated. Honestly, I mean, there are times where the man can just take it easy. So it shouldn't be the man always doing the work. The women can do the work and the man can take it easy. It's as simple as that. No, because if you are fighting for equality, so you should fight for equality in the bedroom as well. It's as simple as that. one of the ways, one of the, one of the ways toxic masculinity can be addressed is by changing how boys and young men are raised in today's society. Dominance and aggression are both traits that are frequently imparted on young boys from an early age, necessary parts of being men. Men have a duty to recognize their privilege in modern society, and that doing so will have a knock-off effect on current state of toxic masculinity. In order to dismantle toxic masculinity, people would have to be willing to change their own privileges, which is not something a lot of people want to do because it gives them an advantage in the world. It is completely necessary to show men, especially boys, that there are many ways of being a man. I have to digress a bit again. My sister was married for 40 years, and she had a husband who couldn't change a light bulb. No, that couldn't change a light bulb. He didn't cook. He went to work, came and gave my sister the check. He was not threatened by my sister because she was a strong woman. But then we came to realize that he was a very strong man who was comfortable in his essence. He just realized that there were certain things he couldn't do. Just like there are certain women who can cook. They can clean. Yeah, exactly. But that is okay. But people looked at him to be a sissy. Because, oh, he cannot do this, he cannot change the life, but he provided for his family. He worked hard. And for me, that is the epitome of a man who goes out, provides for his children, made sure that his children, everybody went to a private school, and everybody had a superb education. And my sister was, even though she was a feminist, she didn't mind doing all the other jobs because it was equal partnership. And that is what is important. Women don't have to cook and clean. So men can cook better than women, and it's okay. So our sons have to be taught that there are what a woman can do, a man can do. Just like we always say that what men can do, women can do, men can do. We should also extend it to our children and make sure that our men, our boys, growing up, they should clean. Not only take rubbish and hoover the house, no, do dishes and do equal chores. Now I'm talking to the ladies, because we raise the men. We raise the men. And if we don't start with our sons are going to be other people's husbands. And this whole unnesekil will continuously be perpetuated. So, toxic masculinity, I think, is created by the women. Finally, it is important to identify such behavior in your relationship and do your utmost best to eradicate it, as this abuse is a ticking time bomb and it will destroy everything you care for and have worked for. So my take this evening is that let's be open, let's communicate and respect each other and try to eradicate toxic masculinity. On that note, I say thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Amina, for that insightful presentation. Like Amina mentioned, it's about equal partnership. What we are looking for is equal partnership. These days, it's not a competition between the sexes or between the genders, what a man can do, a woman can do better. It's not about that. If Amina touched on how her topic was to see how toxic masculinity is affecting our sexual relationships. And the first thing that we don't even allow to talk about is our sexual relationships. As a man, as a couple, and coming from a culture, the Gambian culture, makes it worse for us as women. I remember there was one woman that was telling a story of someone passing by and hearing, you know, during the summer in Norway, and you hear people shouting the windows because they've been active. And this woman was like, oh, so sex can make one actually make those noises? And you feel sorry for her because there is part of her body that she's not allowed to exploit. The feeling is there, she's suppressing it. Because she feels that when she brings out that feeling in her, then she's been labeled as something that she is not. Either you are a whore or you're something, you're giving a name. But then men can do and talk about these things. We see men now, they don't even hide it. They come out and they start talking about these things. They could say the names. And if you, a woman, want to talk about them, even when we are in the bedroom, okay, the boys are allowed to have sex with you like they're driving the Fast and the Furious, like it's a car. But you're not allowed to move. You just suppress everything. What does that do? Don't you feel sorry for that woman? And then what you do, the next thing is you marry another wife. Polygamy continues. Instead of communicating, like Amina said, we have to communicate in the bedroom, in the offices, everywhere, in our societies, in the mosque, even the mosque. There was one woman that said that when you listen to the Quran, like we are all Muslims, you hear what the Prophet did for his wives. How he pleased his wife. But that is not what we practice. And then we say that we are Muslim. This is not allowed. Some of the things that we think are not allowed by our religion is even allowed. The Prophet will be very happy to see you men satisfying your wives more than you're doing now. Our next speaker is Dr. Ismaila Cisse. Dr. Cisse, as I mentioned, is a role model for young Gambian youths. And his topic is the role of education in the elimination of toxic masculinity. He is the head of the political science department, the University of the Gambia. And we are lucky to have you here today, Dr. Cisse. The panel is yours.
Thank you very much, Maimuna. Good evening. It's been a very interesting evening. I don't know who decided to make me the last speaker, but did not do justice to me. Because I wouldn't want to speak after all these great speakers have spoken. It made my prepared speech to be redundant, so now I'll have to do away with it. I think Amina said some very interesting things, which I would not like to challenge, but to take it from a very different perspective. One of them is that a happy wife is a happy home, but equally happy husband is also a happy home. And the second thing he said was, which is also debatable, is the debate as to whether pleasure is the byproduct of sexual intercourse or whether procreation is the byproduct. Which one is the byproduct? That also is a debate that many people have to see differently. But I think yet it's very interesting. And yes, you've made some very interesting comments, the other speakers, Theo, Moses, and Council Fall, that men do cry. I don't cry. And that you said everybody is a feminist. I'm not a feminist. And that polygamy is bad. I'm a serial polygamist, for information. No, but yes, I've been given a very interesting topic. The role of education in eliminating toxic masculinity. But can we really eliminate it? Or do we have to manage it? Eliminating it will be very difficult. But I think through education we can manage it first, and then we think of the eliminating it. Also, you've been talking a lot about 50-50, 50-50, equal partnership. I would be more radical and go for a sexual revolution, where obviously, you mentioned that we live in a very patriarchal society, especially in the Gambia, where we come from. Is the goal to overturn patriarchy, to break the structures and create a new society, which is based on 50-50, or you have a different agenda, an agenda which subjugates men? You don't have that agenda. There is no agenda, are you sure? All right, I hope so. Yes, education is the antidote of toxic masculinity. I wouldn't want to go into the definition. I think previous speakers, Theo in particular, gave a comprehensive overview of not only the definition of toxic masculinity, but also gave us a comprehensive categorization of the traits of toxic masculinity in terms of macho-ness, how in terms of violence and so on and so forth. You mentioned some of the traits. I would go further to discuss how education can really neutralize these traits in boys or men. Education both, and when we say education, not only school education, but also home education, education we derive from home. I'll give my own story as an example of this. I grew up in a polygamous setting, obviously. My father had multiple wives. My mother was the fourth of the many wives, and she was a school teacher. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I also grew up in a very feminine environment. 5 siblings, 4 of them are female. So my 3 elders sisters are female. The one after me is a female. So before the younger last one came, it took a while. So I grew up in a very feminine environment. And because I wasn't allowed to go out and play in the streets, I was forced to play with my sisters. And they wouldn't play football because football was seen as a boys' game. So they would play akara. And I was forced to play akara and Podinyari and Adai with them. And because I also grew up within that environment, I wasn't brought up to be a warrior, to fight in school. So I was a coward. So whenever I have an issue with a colleague who said, there was what we call pray. Make prayer after school. It means that it's a date for a fight after school. So whenever I have those dates and school close at 2:30, by 1:30 I'll find an excuse to sneak and go home. Or I'll give you my lunch to say, you know what, I don't want to fight. So that is how I grew up. And at that time also, and people mention about how men don't like to show emotions. We show emotions when we love someone. Because at that time, and still now, it's not okay at that time for a girl to declare her love to someone, but it was okay for men who are supposed to do it. If a girl does it, they call it chase. If a girl chases you, they see the girl as a whore, as a rose girl. So men were allowed to do it. So we show emotions, although we show it in a very different way. So because of this feminine environment I grew up, I tend to have feminine traits. Not being to the extent of being a metrosexual, that is walking like a girl. But I realized that people who also grew up in a very feminine environment tend to have feminine traits. They tend to behave like girls. And this brings me to the issue of Gordigan. Who is a Gordigan? I think our society has really failed to conceptualize that concept properly. Because now what we do is people who are homosexual, who are attracted to the same sex are called homosexual in our society, are called Gordigan. But also people who are very feminine are also called Gordigan. So who is a Gordigan in our society? We need to properly conceptualize this concept so we can understand it. And I think I agree with Esa that dancing is seen as a Gordigan culture. That is why even though our women like Wali Seka, Most of our guys call him a gold digger because of the way he dances, even though he is not a gold digger. So unfortunately, this is society we come from. It's a very patriarchal society, which with its absurd internal orderings, where there are gender socializations, where it means what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman are clearly prescribed. So there are certain things that we men are not allowed to do. There are also certain things that women are also not allowed to do. But this is changing. For example, you mentioned that we the men normally sit and discuss about our sexual exploits. I've also observed that girls now do it. You see girls saying, "Mangite esa fale mango de floor hamna." So now it is changing. It is changing a lot, and also I think young couples have also changed as opposed to older couples in terms of exploring each other sexually. I think we younger ones are more inquisitive. We show more we are more considerate to our partners than our elders, who see, in fact, the whole view in terms of how we view and perceive sex has changed considerably. So I think the whole thing is a process. It will take time to change these norms. But I think with education is, and that's why I will come to later, because education is so important that it doesn't only teach you about, it teaches you about certain values in life. One of those values is empathy. Empathy is key because all of us understand that when women, and it varies across women when they are in their months, when they see their period, those days can be very difficult for some women because their hormones fluctuate. And we the men should understand that, especially with brothers and husbands, that okay, they're in this period and there is a way, in fact, how to deal with them. So education makes us more, it teaches us certain values, and certain values like empathy, but also not only that, but also being considerate to the opposite sex, and also understand that. And by the way, I was joking when I said I'm not a feminist. I'm a hardcore feminist. I'm not a radical feminist. I'm a liberal feminist. Because there are different. In fact, feminism doesn't speak with one voice. We have the conservative feminists, the liberal feminists, and the radical feminists. I think they all have a common denominator. That is, the female have been subjugated in society. How we change it is where the problem, is where the difference comes in. Where the liberal feminists focus more on trying to change policies, government policies in terms of affirmative action and so on and so forth. The radical feminists are more radical, like Karl Marx. They are more very similar to the Marxists, where Karl Marx wants a proletarian revolution to destroy the structures of the economic system. The radical feminists are calling for a sexual revolution. And when that happens, well, that doom will befall us men. It means that now we'll be the ones going to the market to buy the nduga, whilst we'll be the one sitting at home. So again, coming to education, it's why it is important is that I've always argued, especially recently in the Gambia, thanks to the job of the TRRC, there has been a lot of talk about sexual abuse, rape in Gambian society. It's nothing new. It's just like it's starting to surface. And like I said, the perpetrators of sexual violence don't even know the fact that they are perpetrators. They don't know it's wrong. Equally, those who, unlike you rightly said, Theo, that toxic masculinity is not only harmful to women, it is also harmful to the men, but also harmful to society in general. But how many of our boys and girls know what toxic masculinity is. I can bet you today that if you do a survey of 100,000 Gambian students, maybe 0.01% will tell you what is toxic masculinity. In fact, when I first heard the word, I had to go and Google it to say what is this? Because our curriculum has been so outdated, so colonial, that it doesn't deal with the problems of society. It does not. And these are our problems. And education is supposed to solve society's problems. Society is about morality, ethics, corruption, and these things, sexual abuse, sexual assault. And in fact, the tragedy is that victims of sexual abuse don't even know that they are victims. Because they don't know it is wrong to treat in a particular way. They think it's okay. They think it's okay for your husband to come home at night. You are so tired taking care of the kids, wash the plates, do the laundry, sweep the yard. He goes around playing Gambia all day and doing politics and comes home at night and wants to have sex. And you said you are tired. And he said, no, you cannot say no to your husband because your husband is your only way to heaven. What heaven? He himself cannot take himself to heaven. How can he take you to heaven? And then the worst part is you force yourself onto your wife. Technically, you raped her, and people will say there can be no rape in a marital relationship, which is nonsense. And our law enforcement officers are not well trained to deal with marital problems, and they are not protecting the women. And another aspect in terms of polygamy is, and where it really subjugates women, is you marry a woman at the age of 18. She sacrifices her career, her education, her everything to get married to you. And she gives you 5 to 10 labors in 15 years. And she's 35. No land, no access to capital, no education, no career. You know what the reward is? You wake up one morning, you see Ndejobate, dressing nicely, nice makeup, young, and you marry her. And you invoke Islam. Yes, God said I can marry 2 wives. What about her? Her life? What happens to her? And the state is not doing anything to protect our women and children. And when we argue that we must regulate, not ban polygamy, not remove, but regulate polygamy, there should be an institution called that will regulate polygamy. However you might call it. So when you want to marry a second wife, you send in an application. You fill a form and apply to marry a second wife. So, what the caseworker does is to look at your circumstances. Yes, Babukar Jadama, 2 wives, renting, 15 kids, income, la la la. And he'll write to you that unfortunately your application has been rejected. That's it. I know you are not happy with me. but what that does is it protects our women and children. Because why? If you marry 3 wives with 15 kids, and now the life expectancy in the Gambia is 55, and you die, you leave the state with 15 kids with nothing to do, and 3 wives with no job, nothing. It puts a burden on society. So therefore, it is time for us to consider regulating polygamy. You cannot just wake up in the morning, your salary cannot even buy a bag of rice, you cannot take care of your family, they don't have access to quality health and education, they are lying in bad conditions, and you want to marry a second wife because Islam says you can do it.
No. That's
why I said it's a means-tested thing. if you have the means, if you can prove to the state that you really can, but also we have to also do an emotional test on you. So, on a more serious note, education is key, because education, what it does is, it makes us aware about these things. And our curriculum needs to change, in the sense that we need to start integrating these things in our curriculum, about how we should treat women, our sisters, our wives. These are things we don't learn at school. Like, as I said, these are things that I don't know how most of us men, most of us progressive men learn these traits, but not in school. Nobody taught me in school how to treat a woman, how to treat my wife. All these things, maybe perhaps I am lucky, I grew up mostly in a Western society, but there are those who live in villages in Africa, they don't know these things. They think it's okay to beat your wife. They think it's okay to rape their wives. They think it's okay to do whatever they want to do with their wives. And that is the unfortunate part. And now we need to catch them young. We've lost a generation that go on to treat their women whatever, however, but we need to go catch the younger ones now to teach them these values, certain values. And that is the key here. And making sure that we revisit our education system to make sure that it reflects the kind of society we want. If we want a society that is based on equal partnership between the two sexes, a society where there is no exploitation, whether it is against women or against children, against even our animals, the way we treat our animals is also important. We need to go and instill these values at the educational level, from school, that this is the way you behave as a child. Even corruption today, most people don't even know that what they are engaging in is corruption, because we are not learning these things at school. And this is where education comes. That is where I would task the IAC. And by the way, I would like to profoundly thank the IAC for organizing this very important event, and also for inviting me to come and give a talk here. But again, what I'm saying is to roll out this project, to make sure you have projects in communities in Africa that target schools and younger ones. Our generation is lost. You cannot change us, because the way we treat women, these things are ingrained in us. We cannot change, but we need to go and catch those ones young, and making sure the next generation, we live in a society which doesn't see women as instruments, for example. So this is what the AIC can do now. Let's target the younger ones. Let's catch them young. Let's make sure we go back to education system to make sure that because let me tell you something, and like Thomas Sankara has said, that the independence of Africa will never be complete if women are not totally emancipated. We are still backward in Africa because of our women are not totally emancipated. That's why. That is the magic. That is why we are still backward, because of the way we are treating our women. Pure and simple. Until and unless we emancipate our women, until and unless we give them the freedom to explore their talents, until and unless we see them as partners, we complement each other, then we have a problem. So on that note, I would stop here and just emphasize that education is not only in the schools. Education also is in the homes, and I think every one of us has a role here. There are on a final note, there are two agencies that are responsible for the exploitation and subjugation and oppression of women. You know those two agencies who they are? Men and culture. And we have to change that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sise, for another powerful presentation there. Like he said, it's sad when we hear that we've lost our generation, but that is our reality. And the moment we accept that it's our reality, we've lost the generation. Let's invest in the coming generation. Let's teach our young ones how to resist, and then how to revisit our educational curriculum. That is true. We have people in the Gambia that say that I'm educated. It's book education. I call it book education. And when you test their social intelligence, it's nothing. And when we started talking about toxic masculinity, I think the round started on Facebook, actually, when people were personally attacking IAC for like, oh, I support them, but I think this is far beyond. What have we said here that is beyond, that is unacceptable? There is nothing that is unacceptable here. The things that we see, that we've talked about here, they are the things that we live every day. It is our lives. But when women start talking, it is merely reduced to women's planning. We are telling you again how we should be treated as women. That is not what it is. And you talked about regulating polygamy. It is actually happening in some Arabic countries. I think it's in Egypt, where you have to apply through the courts if you are to take up another wife. And in that case, even your economy is evaluated. And I think the emotional evaluation comes next. Education, like Dr. Sise said, teaches men empathy, which is also very important. Our women knowing their rights and obligations. That is very important. If this Quran, no one should just, you know, Surah An-Nisa is my best surah in the Quran. Even if you wake me in the middle of the night, I will tell you what Surah An-Nisa talks about women. Because I've been interested. It's about me. I do not need to go and cram the Holy Quran and then just start saying things that are not important to me. The most important thing to me is, how should I be treated as a human being? And I've seen that I've been suppressed. So Surah An-Nisa should be my weapon, like patriarchy is a weapon for men. It should be my weapon to emancipate, to liberate myself from the oppression that I'm being subjugated to. So you all should read Surah An-Nisa. And then come with your arguments. Yeah, it's important. When we argue about things, you should know what you are talking about. Because the moment you start arguing, and then this man will tell you that you don't even know what you're saying. It's just like Dr. Cesar said. You've been taught that you should satisfy your man. You cannot say no to your husband. That is not true. You can actually say no. But the husband can go even to the imam and say, they are proud to do that. So I think we've had discussions here that try to unlearn the things that we've learned as culture, as religion, as Ada and Chosan, how that has infiltrated our own existence as a human being. And that is what we call toxic masculinity. We are producing a generation of men that are toxic. That is what they are. Look at how they behave on Facebook. You are a woman, you talk. I'm talking about the Gambian Facebook people. We have that one as well. You talk about feminism, you hate men. They don't want to get married. Don't associate yourself with Maimuna. Why? What is wrong with me? I'm not harmful. I'm just talking. We should be able to talk without attacking each other. And the men, they are toxic. What you're doing is toxic. And when you talk about patriarchy, it has a special feeling in these Gambian men's bodies. I don't know why. Patriarchy equals something that they don't even know. I think this is what I'm telling every Gambian man now is to go and read and understand what patriarchy is. It is a system. It is a system, and it is a very well-established system in our society, and it should be deconstructed. It should be demolished. Yes. It exists. It's like you tell us about patriarchy. What is it? It exists actually, and we should do something about it. Patriarchy is being used as a weapon to rape, to torture, and to dehumanize women. And on that note, I say thank you very much, everyone that made it to this place, and thank you very much for your speakers. And see you next year on another topic. Thank you. No, I thought that the men would come like trying to defend, so I'm blocking everything. Yeah, any questions? We would want to make the questions very short. I think we have 1 hour. And then now, because we've run out of time, we'll reduce that to half an hour or 45 minutes. After that, there will be dinner and networking. Yeah. I'll go around. If you have a question, your hand up and I can go around and take them. Yeah. The gentleman there.
Good evening. Let me first thank the presenters, all of them, for giving a very brilliant presentation. I think it was no mistake on the part of the organizers to invite this caliber of people because they've dealt with the topic very well. I've taken note of some of the discussion points. I think Dr. Cesar has partly answered some of my talking points, so I will not elaborate on that. But just to emphasize that one of the key things he mentioned was targeting them when they're young. I think, like he said, beliefs, perceptions are deeply rooted. It's difficult to change. But what we can do is target the next generation. How we do that is we go to the grassroots. For instance, all of us, we are parents, right? We have our kids, some have, some don't, but most people have. If you teach your boys at a young age that hitting a girl is wrong, bullying them, taking food away from them, at that early age, they will never be perpetrators. And that's something fundamental that we need to, I don't want to elaborate on the other parts. The final point that I wanted to make is women should empower each other. And I think if you follow the proceedings of the TRRC in Gambia, when some of the female victims or survivors testified, what happened on social media, which I frequent a lot, you see women attacking other women for testifying. And people voice in their stories saying we are there for the money, we are there for this. You see, if you do that, you empower us to abuse you further. So it's important, and I always like to say that. I said this to agenda activists in Gambia. I said, let's take an example. You have a brother abroad, and he lives behind a woman or a wife. Anytime that lady steps out of the house, there is a camera on her, 360 degree. Right? But you never utter a word to your brother to say, I hope you're behaving. It doesn't happen. So usually it's females, pulling each other down. And if you do that, like I said, you empower us to abuse you further. Thank you.
So the lady, okay, I'll take it.
Thank you very much, Iac Norway,
and the delegates, the speakers, as Mr. Njai said. The presentations were really resourceful and very useful. I hope we share the videos and educate our men. My question to the speakers is, we have a problem in the Gambia. I saw on GRTS last time, where the GRTS presenter, on a number of occasions, they go on and say, they ask the audience for prayers so that they can also get a second life. And that's a government institution, and everybody's listening to them. And I don't even see many people condemning it. I think those are really serious problems that we need to resolve. At least at the state level, and the state broadcaster. So I think the problem is that our women are the biggest perpetrators of as Mr. Njai said, violence against themselves and polygamy, because if you cannot marry a man as a second wife, you marry a girl, another girl. So if they allow themselves to be second wives and even advocate for it, I think those are the biggest problems, and that's what we need to address. Next time, hopefully, in Iac Norway, how women perpetrate violence and polygamy against themselves. Thank you very much.
We cannot perpetrate violence on ourselves.
I think that you have addressed a very important issue, and I talked about that in my presentation. I think what we have to do is to continue the work that IAC is doing in raising the consciousness of women who are in oppressive relationships. We really have to understand the psychology of oppression. How it works. And women experience a lot of oppression, and they have internalized it. It's internalized. So it's very important that IAC continues with the consciousness raising projects that they have. I think so too.
Thank you very much. I just want to say this little point. Is the problem polygamy by itself, or is the problem that men are behaving badly? I think the answer lies with the second point, that men are behaving badly. And that is the problem we should tackle. Some answers have been given. Yes, I'm coming to that. So the issue is not, the problem is not that polygamy is out there and polygamy must therefore go down. The problem is that men are behaving badly. The problem is that there are systems in place which enable men to behave badly. So what we must do is to find solutions to that bad behavior. We can do it through the law, we can do it through education, we can do it through campaigns. What you are doing is part of that important exercise. But we should not just limit it to catching them when they're young. That's a very important solution. But it just solves part of the problem. There is also that immediate problem that we have to deal with. Because while we train the kids, there's still women who are suffering in their homes. So we have to get those men who behave badly and deal with them. So we sensitize them, we educate them through television, through outreach programs, through what have you. And we should also use the law to really address this particular problem. Previously, wife beating was accepted in our society. Rape of your wife was accepted. It wasn't even known as rape. But times have changed. Now rape of your wife is possible, it's accepted by the law. And that only happened through advocacy by women and challenging the system. So now, you just don't do it alone as women. Enlist men to also support. Yes. Thank you.
I think I have to disagree with you. As to whether polygamy is the issue or not, I think that is the issue, and the system of patriarchy that underpins it. Okay, if you agree that women should have the right to marry many husbands, 2 or more husbands, then I will agree with you. I think that we really have to take into consideration the emotional injustice that polygamy or polygyny imposes on women. So what is good for men should be good for women too. And I agree with you, Dr. Sise, that we should start from the kids. We have to catch them young, because polygyny, toxic masculinity has a lot of psychological consequences for young people who are growing up, I work with, my organization works with young people, black youth, who are street involved. Who sells drugs, and all that. And they always articulate this hyper masculinity, and they are depicted in the media here in Norway as violent gangsters, violent criminals. But if you get to know these young people, you realize that they have suppressed a lot of, they have suppressed their frustrations, and all that can erupt in certain situations into violence. I remember when I was doing my PhD, I interviewed some of these young people when I was writing my thesis, and two of them broke down and cried like babies when I interviewed them about their families. And one of them said, "Oh, Moses, I promised myself that I will not cry under the interview, but I cried." So they are just babies. We have to go behind the masculine facade and discover the babies there. That they need affection, they need love that they cannot find elsewhere. And I think that the struggle, there is this criminologist, Professor Thomas Mathieson, who developed the concept of the unfinished. The struggle should be unfinished, and the ultimate aim should be to abolish polygyny and the patriarchal system that supports it. I think that is the solution.
Thank you, Moses.
Can I give them?
I have few some points to elaborate with regards to what the speakers talked about. The first one has to do with what Professor